So I want to describe for you how to go about doing a QC self-paced course. Now, the first thing that I really want you to understand is that you are the scientist. I actually don't even want you to think of yourself as a student. Think of yourself as a professional scientist doing experiments, trying to make meaning of these experiments, taking as much data and making as many observations as you can. And then with these observations and data, your job then is to kind of piece them together almost like a puzzle or a set of evidence and see if you can make meaning out of it. See if you can say something intelligent. Is there a pattern, or is there a relationship, or is there some grand overarching explanation that explains the phenomena you saw in the laboratory experiment? And one thing I want to emphasize is that perfection is not the goal here. The goal is to simply make sense of your data and observation in the scientific experiments that you conduct. And this all takes place on our Canvas learning platform, where you can see each Quantum Camp unit is separated into 5 chapters, and each chapter follows the same exact flow. And the flow goes like this. There's a lab launch, a lab, and a landing. You do this cycle twice, and then there are a set of learning extensions, a problem set, and a discussion forum. So let me walk you through each piece of this really quickly, and we'll get you started on chapter 1. The first piece is the lab launch. This is where we pose a compelling, sometimes mystifying or puzzling challenge, scientific challenge to you that you must solve. We'll provide some background information and get you ready to conduct the lab experiment. And that's the second part. In the lab, we'll provide a set of steps or a procedure that you should follow along, and sometimes we'll be vague, sometimes we'll be specific, but the ultimate goal is to challenge you to go ahead and set up the experiment in the best way you can. We'll provide some safety details and maybe some things that you might want to look out for as you're conducting the lab. As well, part of the lab is a request for you to submit a lab write-up. And so we want to know what you're thinking. We want to see your results, whether it's tabulated in a data table, whether it's a calculation, whether it's simply a picture or some observations. All are wonderful ways to make sense of the lab that you just conducted. And so we'll ask you to submit that in the Canvas Learning Platform. And once you launch into the lab, we hope you come in for a smooth landing. And the landing is actually where we convey to you kind of what the accepted science is around the challenge and the lab that you just did. And so this is the science that's been accepted by scientists of the past decades and centuries on the topic that you just covered. And keep in mind, your conclusions may be different, but that's okay. You spent maybe an hour or a couple days at most, combing through your data and your observations to make these grand conclusions. The accepted science often takes decades, if not centuries, to come to. And so we'll provide this information to you in the landing. And as I said, after you go through this launch lab landing cycle twice, there'll be a set of extensions, which are nothing more than a set of videos and readings for you to contemplate and reflect on the science addressed in the lab. Then there's a problem set, which is the problem set. We'll ask you to sort of apply your skills and see what you know. And then there's a discussion forum for you to pose questions, pose challenges that you may have had, or even pose new ideas that other students can try. And the last thing I'll say is what I started out with. Remember, you are the scientist. You are the investigator. You're the one collecting the data, amassing the information, and piecing together your sense of how the universe works.